Okay, so let's get started. Thanks for joining, everyone. Before we start our conversation, I'm just going to frame our conversation for today. Consumer trends are very often manufactured by retailers and brands. These types of trends begin on the catwalks of Milan and the exhibit halls of Las Vegas, but today important trends also materialize organically on social platforms and are then embraced and evolved by virtual communities. Those types of organic trend can be more impactful on the shopping behavior of consumers than the manufactured ones. For retailers, it can be really hard to continually merchandise and market your products in a way that maps to the ever-changing whims of the consumer. Merchandising and marketing is no longer a once-a-season activity. The best and most profitable businesses are always listening and are creating agile organizations that are ready to pounce as the consumer winds change and new trends merge. My name is Ian Davis, and I'm Senior Vice President of Business Development at Quid. Quid works with retailers and consumer brands to make sure that they have their finger on the pulse of trends and opinions that are the most relevant for their markets, their categories, their products, and their competitors. We use advanced AI to unearth those trends from social platforms, user-generated content, and other public and first-party sources. And we work with our customers to create action plans to drive business benefit from those trends. And we call this outcome engineering. I'm thrilled to be joined today by Mary Beth Sheridan. Mary Beth, can you please introduce yourself and also tell us a little bit about the mission of a retail merchant?
Hi, Ian. It's great to be here with you today and with the entire team at Quid. I'm really looking forward to our discussion. As you teed up, I've spent my entire career in retail, from before college through university and beyond. And my expertise really lies in omni-channel merchandising. We'll talk about what that is and what that means a lot today, but also product strategy and brand growth. The mission of the merchant, as I'll just keep referring to the merchant, what I've done in my career, is fundamentally the same as it always has been. But the market and the consumers are changing with increasing speed. So the dynamic is really coming at the merchants and the marketers, sort of like as I say, drinking from a fire hose. That's one of the things that's really always excited me about retail is it's so fast paced, and that it's gotten even more so with the dynamics of social and some of the changes in AI that we're going to talk about today. But I've had I'll say the fortune, and I've put myself in the place of working with some really iconic retailers and brands. A couple of them are Macy's, Anthropologie, Urban Outfitters, Inc. And, these brands are brands that I have felt very passionately about as an employee, but also customers also feel very passionately about. And when you can latch onto something like we're going to talk about today quickly as a trend and really speak to your customer with increased sort of just vulnerability and just being really true to who you are as a brand with your customer, that's when you really see what we call in the industry full price sales and margin grow. So that's, again, sort of what fuels our blood and gets us going.
That's great. Well, thank you, Mary Beth. So just to let everyone know on the call, we're going to take some Q&A at the end of the call. And there should be a Q&A box that you should see on your Zoom. So if you have any questions, then please throw those into the Q&A box, and Mary Beth and I will try and address those at the end if we have the time to do so. Okay, so let's get into it, Mary Beth. First of all, as a merchant, you've got to be an expert, as you said, of knowing your customer, their wants and needs, and kind of getting under their skin a little bit. But traditionally, as a merchant, how do you do that? What signals do you have to know what your customer or your consumer is up to? What do they care about? How do you do that? What's your input for being able to do that activity?
Yeah. Well, success today in retail means, like we're going to keep saying this, listening to your customer and knowing who your customer is. I'll say, rather than the old way, which was the retailer telling the customer what they needed and they convey that by buying a lot of that stuff and marketing it a lot. That has done a complete 180 in the past several years, with the onset of consumers really steering the ship on what they want. And, I always say the best way to get close to your customer, there's several ways. The best way is honestly the old way, on the shop floor, we'll call it. And, as a retailer, we're constantly visiting not only our stores, hopefully, if you're a retailer that has brick and mortar stores, some don't, but also the competitive landscape, the competition getting into stores. And you can talk to not only the customer in these ways, but also the sales associates and your own colleagues and team members that work in the stores, and get what's turning the customer on in the fitting room, what's working for them, what's not working for them. How are they looking at the prices and getting sticker shock? Are they going somewhere else and buying, what's happening? And when you get it straight from the customer, you can take the quickest, most immediate action and really understand what they're looking for. But additionally, we need to stay very close to societal trends, and that has really helped the best retailers get very close to what we'll call generational shopping. So, when you see a mom and a daughter, or 2 or 3 generations shopping at the same time, and you can tailor your brand voice and your product assortment to speak to multiple generations, it really builds this sort of swell of momentum of sustainability, not sustainability, but a sustainable trend in the business, where you've got, customers sort of looking for more and what's new and what's next from that retailer. And that's when all the connecting of the dots of that customer love and customer loyalty come together to mean more than just selling what we call stuff or a product, but really creating a brand that resonates with them.
Yeah. Have you, in your experience, have you used things like, I guess especially around product launches, like customer panels or focus groups, where you try things out ahead of formal product launches, or even things like exit surveys on websites, more kind of traditional voice of customer solutions. Have you used those kind of things as well?
Yeah, those are really good, and we'll talk a little bit about those as we go later. But the more you can look at comments on social media, why is somebody returning something? Read those responses. Really listening to your customer, and you have to respond on social media when a customer has a question or makes a complaint, or hopefully, a compliment. They don't expect to just go into a big black hole. They want to know that there's a human, or sometimes an AI aided human, that is looking at those and reading those and going to respond to their comments. And, exit surveys and customer panels are another way to subsidize that.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned social, so let's turn our attention there, because clearly we know the influence that the social platforms have on consumer buying patterns now, and how quickly things can change. In your experiences, I guess over the last 10 years, say, how have you seen the merchant role change as a result of social inputs, shall I say, in the mix of all of the other channels that you get information from?
Yeah. Well, social trends aren't just hype. They are directly influencing customer decisions and customer behavior. So right now, I'd like to talk about one type of trend identification for merchants, and I'll tell you what the second one is, because we're going to touch upon that later. The first one is what I'm going to call proactive or anticipating trends. The second that we'll talk about later is reactive, when trends happen that you didn't anticipate. But, proactive, or trends that you can anticipate, comes from really agile merchants that are always looking at what's going on in society and able to anticipate and shape their product assortments, the channels that they put the product in, whether it's online, in stores, whether they wholesale it, whether they put it up on Amazon, whether they, you can shop through social channels now, so that's going to all be influenced if the merchants and the marketers and their trend advisors are anticipating the trend ahead of time. When that happens, the marketers have time to really tell the trend, the societal trend through what we call storytelling. And that really hits upon the brand's voice and makes shopping a lot of fun for not only the retailers that are going to experience that flywheel of the business, but
Yeah.
really more importantly, fun for their customers. And that's what it is all about. We've got to meet the customers where they want to be and make this, we all talk about experiential retail. The biggest part of experiencing retail is enjoying it, having fun, going with your mom, your sister, your friends, posting it on social media. All of that makes it a very interactive environment for our customers.
Yeah. And I think also I think especially with the emergence of social, I think the people feel very passionate about their lifestyle choices as well, and use social platforms as a place to express those passions as well. So I suppose connecting the retail experience to those particular lifestyle passions as well
Yeah.
is something that's probably not something that was really had to be done until that information was available, or was hard to get at until social platforms were available to you.
Yeah.
So let's turn up our attention to another thing. I saw it the other day and I thought it's incredibly interesting, and I'd be interested in your thoughts as well. So this was big for me because this was wow, a Target Q4 earnings call transcript, and there's Cara Sylvester over at Target, saying something very specific about how the influence of socials is influencing the work that they think about at Target. So I just to read from the top: before arriving at our digital and physical stores, we know that social media plays an outsized role in today's shopping journey. Consumers seamlessly shift between discovering trends and making purchases, which means shopping is no longer a distinct transaction, which is, I think we all know. But I found the next paragraph really interesting, which is, as the mob wife aesthetic trend began to go viral on social platforms, we were able to quickly amplify all things leopard print across the platform right as it was trending, capitalizing on the cultural moment as it occurred rather than reading it and reacting after the fact. And again, it isn't about stores or digital or social, it's all of them working together. We're connecting our digital experience with our already beloved store experience, unlike anyone else. So I just thought this was fascinating, because I think people often attribute, something that comes out of the social space in terms of a trend, as thinking mainly it's going to get applied to the digital experience. But what I like about Cara's quote here is like, no, number one, this means we've got to get a lot of people from across the business in the room at the same time. And
Yeah.
it's impacting not just our digital channels, but it's going much broader. It's all of our business.
Yeah, absolutely. The customer journey might start on digital, but they end up in the store, or they end up on the website, or on social, or on the app. There's so many different ways customers can shop, but what you just read is terrific. And that really outlines, we're going to keep talking about relevancy, a brand or a company's relevancy to what's going on with consumers. And this is, unlike what we talked about before, which is a proactive, anticipatory trend that merchants and marketers can plan into and budget for. What Mob Wife in that particular instance was, what we'll talk about a little bit more, is a reactive trend that's really influenced by cultural shifts, viral moments, influencer endorsements, these kinds of things that retailers that are really deploying social listening can pick up on quite quickly. These are like, I'm going to just say, rock star merchants and marketers at these brands and these companies, and Target's one of them in that example, that are really tapped into what's happening out there in the macro environment, and they're deploying social listening on every angle. Sometimes it's one person in the brand or company that picks up on it. Sometimes it's a swell, and they all come in. Everybody comes in excited to maximize it. But really, when we look at some of Quid's AI tools, what that's doing is helping the retailer, helping the merchant to quickly identify and forecast some of these trends and get a competitive edge. And I'm sure that came into play in that example that you just shared with one of Quid's clients. I think really, you have to then combine that with the brand's authentic voice. And I keep coming back to like, what is the DNA of, in that case, Target? And does it align with that mob wife trend? In this case, it did, because they saw a lot of success for it. But you really always have to come back to what's right for the brand, what's right for their customer. And we can all sense when it's inauthentic, you know. And if a brand tries to tap into a trend that isn't really pertinent to their customers and their values as a brand, it really can backfire and cause a lot of social, I'll call it, you know, problems for brands. And we've seen that happen too. So you always want to put it through that lens of brand and customer to make sure that you're speaking to customers in an authentic way.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. And what I'm personally excited about is kind of probably rewind as maybe as little as 3 years ago. Social listening was an activity that was really thinking about pretty high level questions. You know, what's my overall customer sentiment? What's my overall brand identity? It was very high level questions, but it's only in the last couple of years where, you know, with the arrival of all of the new large language models and generative AI, that we can actually get a level of accuracy out of the social posts now, where we can actually get it down to identifying a trend, recognizing that what does that trend actually mean? Oh, it actually means that, you know, a pattern of leopard print is interesting, a material of leather is interesting, a particular silhouette, if we're talking about fashion, you know, the attributes of that particular trend, we start to be able to get them a lot more apparent using the new large language models. And then we've got a chance of attaching that to the products that we sell. We can actually work out what does mob wife mean to Target? Do we have a product range that fits that particular trend? But to your point also, but is mob wife something we actually want to activate on?
Yes. Because in Target's case, yes, but some retailers would say, not for us. We've got some of that product, but we're not going to speak to that, and let Target have it, you know, because you just have to be really in tune with your customer and your brand in order to make some of those calls quickly.
Yeah. So next question, Mary Beth. I know one of the well-known rituals about being a retailer is the mythical Monday morning meetings, where you all gather and chew over last week's numbers and the state of the business. You know, is in your experience, is social input on the agenda of that meeting yet?
Well, you know, what you're talking about, the mythical Monday meeting, is really the ritual Monday meeting. I'm going to call it.
That's true. Mythical is the wrong word.
It's not mythical because every retailer's got one. They occur at different times. They take different forms. Sometimes they're in person, sometimes they're remote, some, you know, different people in them. But, you know, very, very critically, that Monday meeting is a very important ritual where the key stakeholders in the business come together and discuss, like you said, the current state of their business. You know, what's happening with the sales, what's happening with the channels, what's happening with the profitability. Are we selling full price? Do we have a markdown problem? You know, what's going on with marketing spend? Are we spending enough? Are we not spending enough? Are we losing share? Are we, you know, do we have enough new customers coming into the funnel this week? So all this data, you know, comes through at the end of a week, which is typically for most retailers at the end of a fiscal week is Saturday, so that Sunday all the reports get generated and we have this Monday meeting to discuss the current business, including that weekend. You know, but then there's the whole macro environment and society that's happening outside of the reports that we get mired in. So it's very, very important to have that sort of external outlook. And what we talked about, those rock stars, you know, in the previous meeting, in the previous commentary, where, you know, people are really aware of what's happening out there politically, what's happening in music, what's happening, you know, in sports, in social, with celebrities and influencers. So, you know, I think if you're deaf to that, you're not maximizing your business and you're not being true to your brand. So increasingly social is having an input into that Monday meeting, to answer your question directly. And I think that the planning of the business and the speed at which that's happening is allowing some of the tools that we'll talk about, and AI and Quid's tools, to have that opportunity to capture that data very quickly, so that the actual human skills of these very skilled merchants and marketers and analysts that are employed at the companies can combine that social listening skill of theirs with the data input, to really take market share quickly in the industry. So that's pretty much how social comes in. But the answer is yes. It's a very, very important part of the business decisions.
Do you think that when you think about the industry as a whole, the maturity level of taking social as an input, do you think that's certainly, I can imagine, the realm of fashion, apparel, beauty, certain categories are probably more tuned into the social conversations than others, which I guess is probably the areas you've worked in most. But my sense is that the maturity level in other sectors and other categories isn't probably quite there, and they're not quite tuned into listening to social yet. But it's to your point, and as we've discussed so far in our conversation, they're going to have to do it because their customers are out there, and they're forming opinions, they're forming communities, and these trends are popping up. So I think you make some great point. Hey, I'll show you something. We the Quid team had some fun the other day. We this is, I guess, is a good example of a reactive. We saw Kendrick Lamar wear his flared jeans at the Super Bowl, and no surprise, our alerts went off, and flared jeans became a trend all of a sudden. And this is the kind of report that we put together, and kind of believe aspirationally this is the kind of thing that you would envisage a merchant would take into a Monday meeting. So I wonder if you could just talk us through some of the content that you see on this slide. Maria, if you just scroll back up to the top, we'll go from the top.
Yeah. We'll just go slowly through it. I think I give the Quid team so much credit. This came together and is exactly. I'm so excited as a merchant, working for any one of these companies. These are all fictitious examples in here, but of what this would mean to me, getting this on a Sunday night or early on a Monday morning, and it kind of packages together data that backs up my feeling of what happened on Sunday night at the Super Bowl. A gut feeling is very important in retail. I do want to reinforce that, because the best merchants really are very much a student of the business and know what's going on. So this is an example of a formula. I call it right trend, right product, right timing, and right storytelling. And if those four things, trend, product, timing, and storytelling, can come together, that's magic and really fun to expand your business and go after something quickly and have a lot of fun with it for yourself and your customers. So what happens quickly, when we get a brief like this on a Monday, or even on Sunday night, quite honestly, we're all watching the Super Bowl. If you're in merchandising or marketing, you've got to watch the Grammys, you've got to watch the Super Bowl, you've got to watch the Met Gala. There are certain events that are cultural influencers and indicators that I hope you like watching them, because it's your job. But it is your job. I want to make sure everybody knows that. We know that if you love what you're doing every day, it doesn't feel like work, but it is work, and it's your job. So quickly, what the best merchants and marketers do is pull together what we call a product pool. And this can happen in a matter of, I'm going to say, hours. During the Super Bowl, by Monday morning, they can quickly go into their own websites and pull together all the flare jeans, likely related products. I'll call it, boot cut jeans, light wash flares, light wash boot cuts, whatever is relevant. And we all saw what Kendrick was wearing, and we all wanted to look like him, quite honestly. So, everybody was going crazy, how can we get a piece of this? So pull together a product pool that perhaps you then, so one is a product pool. Let the customers know you've got it and how quickly you've got it on their website. Number two, we call it marketing activations. So really activate this on your site in social media. We call it UGC, user generated content. If you've got customers who've tried on flared or bootleg jeans, put them on there. If you've got some social going out the next day, whether that be TikTok, Instagram, stories, Pinterest, get on top of that. So you're speaking to that trend immediately when customers wake up, maybe not so early after the Super Bowl, and are looking for those jeans. And then even in stores, you could pull together your flare jeans, maybe get them on the mannequins, pull them together, for Monday's start of business. So, that's what we call activations. And now you've got, because this was a reactive trend, like you said, we didn't know what Kendrick was going to wear. We didn't know anything about it until, whoa, here he comes on stage, right? So now this is reactive, and this is going to cause what we call a scarcity model. So the retailers are going to get caught without enough inventory. They're going to pull together as much as they can so that they look like they've got it. And that's that product pool we talked about in those marketing activations. But they're going to be caught for a while without the inventory because we did not anticipate this. So this is when their marketing partners, which merchants and marketers are attached at the hip, marketing comes into play and really helps to support this trend with the customers until more product can arrive. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. But there's language and strategies that get deployed, like get on the wait list, limited edition releases, join the list, be the first to know, get your membership perks, and these are also examples and ways that marketers can quickly take advantage of getting new clients and new customers on their file. New customers, again, this is our job. And if you're not thinking about getting new customers on an hourly basis as a retailer, you're not doing your job, because getting new customers is like getting air, in your lungs. And it's critical to the future of the business. And because customers attrit and they grow older, and you need to constantly be fueling that pipeline with new customers and driving that urgency, and that we're going to be the place to have your flare jeans, and stay with us, get on our wait list. So that's the kind of reaction that we would have to a brief like this.
Now that's interesting. And of course, this was an example of a trend that started in traditional broadcast media. It was on TV, and the trend started there, and obviously blew up on socials. But obviously there's hundreds, thousands of trends that start in socials as well, and those things are probably not as obvious to the public. Right. They start in these smaller communities, and then eventually, with a swell of momentum, they cross over into mainstream. But also, I like your point, because I think people probably often think of something like a flare jeans trend or a mob wife trend, and think about how that's going to drive into the customer experience. But of course, the poor old inventory forecasters, etc., they're thinking about, wow, how's this going to impact my business? I've got my forecasting algorithms, of which social is probably not an input today, and yet they've got to be reactive. They've got to start replenishment. They've got to think about how they're going to get some restocking in the warehouse to be able to surface the sudden demand that's going. I think people often forget that there's a demand side of this kind of trends, in addition to attaching it to the customer experience that you want to give over as well. Yeah, that's fascinating.
Yeah, that leads perfectly into what we're going to talk about next.
Excellent.
That up is, what do the merchants do?
What does the merchant do?
What does the merchant do when this happens?
So that's it, really. Getting insights and visibility of these trends is great, but we talked about some of them. What are some of the actions that actually could get kicked off, if not in that Monday meeting, but if overall, if a trend lands and a business decides it's going to activate on it, I can envisage all sorts of business lines are going to have to do something about it within a retailer.
Yeah. Well, if you're in the retail business, the biggest thing that we're talking about now is newness, being relevant, quickly getting closer to your customer. The AI tools that, we've developed at Quid really help us get closer to the customer and driving newness. Customers don't want to see the same stuff when they go on your site and walk in. Activating that newness, having what we call a curtains up moment, newness on a weekly and daily. The best brands are doing it definitely once a week, some twice a week with newness. And this is where you drive not only sales, but what we keep saying, brand relevancy and customer loyalty. Now, if that happens, and the retailer, one of the ones I've worked at, and the flare jeans happen overnight like that, there's really three drivers that we talk about immediately. And this is in merchandising and in planning. You touched on planning. Merchants are kind of in the middle between marketing and planning. And this is when merchants really, if you've got the combination of gut feeling, left brain, right brain going on, you can really get into this quickly. So there's three things you do. These are the three things. I'll touch upon these three. You either recut it, you expand it, and you chase it. So that, so you should automatically be thinking, how are you going to get at maximizing this trend? And, Quid supplies the data quickly. Now we need the humans to go into action and partner together with planning and sourcing and get the stuff here. So recut means reorder it. So quickly, quick adaptation by the merchants, what we call as a test and learn strategy. And the flare jeans would be one of those things. Now you don't need to test it because, Kendrick did that for you. Kendrick did that for you. But really understanding the customer's appetite. If you saw that you had some flare jeans and they sold out, very quickly, you now understand your customer's appetite and you can reorder that small quantity that you had to satisfy that demand that then had to go into a wait list situation. The second thing you would do is what we call expand it. And this is what's called a product franchise. So if you had Kendrick wore a light wash flare jean, we would then be automatically talking about, how about a dark wash? Summer's coming. How about a white jean? Oh, how about a print jean? Bandanas are hot. Let's do a bandana print jean. We would come up with different washes, different colors, different prints. Oh, maybe we could turn it into a cropped flare. Maybe, different lengths. Men love them. How about women? Oh, can we take this into the kids? Kids love them too, So we would automatically say, this is a franchise opportunity and let's build it out. And then I'd say the last thing that we do is chase. And, the success of many retailers today is an agile production and supply chain. So the production department and the supply chain partners are in all these Monday meetings that we just talked about, and they're hearing all of this, and they're automatically, messaging their supplier base, getting in touch with their freight forwarders, and trying to understand how quickly we can get any flare jeans that are already in the pipeline pulled in more quickly, or can we get a quick cutting of a flare jean? Maybe we move some production out of one type of product and into this one that is trending and hot, so that we can get that fast fulfillment of supply chain that is a dramatic, massive competitive edge for the retailers that can do that and have that sort of agility and that nimbleness in their structure.
Yeah. So that kind of rolls on to my last question that I've got for you before we cut to Q&A. But it's kind of how do retailers need to evolve? I mean, in terms of the way they organize their processes, the solutions they have. Retail wasn't born to be this reactive or this nimble in general, and different categories, different retailers are at different stage of that evolution of being so reactive to these trends. So, what's your advice? I mean, in terms of how people need to think about their organization in order to be able to capitalize to the max on these trends when they occur?
Well, it all comes down to balance. Everything comes down to balance, and it's we've talked about it multiple times on this call already, listening to your customers and balancing what's right for your customer and your brand with reacting, because sometimes reacting too quickly can go off the rails. So, I think, we talked about getting into stores, looking at the competition, listening to your wholesale partners if you're a wholesaler, and really taking that constant consumer and customer feedback and actually doing something with it. It becomes evident to your customers when you're listening and doing something with their voice versus some retailers that are, I'm just going to say, stuck in their ways and not hearing their customers or responding quickly enough. I think it's actually table stakes now, Ian. You cannot be that way and survive going forward, because we have enough, we have so much coming at us as consumers, and we have so many options as to where we can get, I'm just going to call it stuff. I can get stuff on Amazon with no human interaction, and I can get it tomorrow quite easily. But, we want to be attached to a brand and to a heritage and to values and to having some fun when we're shopping, and experiential retailer, whatever that means for you, whether you've got a restaurant or a coffee shop, or you're just a place, like I said, where generations can shop together. That's an experience in and of itself. So it's a mandate. It's not a, do you want to get on board? It's, like I said, it's table stakes, and you better get on board, or business will not thrive going forward.
Yeah, that's great, Mary Beth. So I think we'll, Maria, I guess hopefully we've got a few questions coming for myself and Mary Beth. Have you picked out any ones that you think look interesting for us?
I have. Thank you. I've been behind the scenes enjoying this wonderful conversation. I know we're coming up to time, so I'm going to dive right into one of the questions that came in. I'll paraphrase it, but with the advent of all of the new AI tools and just technology moving at such a fast pace, Mary Beth and Ian, do you have recommendations of how retailers can best approach the changes in technology and incorporate that into their processes?
Yeah,
go ahead. You want to start? Go ahead, Ian.
I'll take a stab at that first, because I think it's certainly over the last 10 years, retailers have got much better at gathering and processing data, but there's a lot of it, and if as we all know, a lot of retailers still based on Excel, which doesn't help things. Moving Excel files around is still happens a lot, but for those who are a little bit more advanced, there's a dashboard on just about anything you need. So that they're not short of data. It's I think with the advances in LLMs and with data science and machine learning, hopefully we can kind of just cut through that data and actually just surface things that are relevant in more quickly, so that like trends, for example, we're able at Quid to be able to surface these trends by the advancements in large language models, quite frankly, and understanding all of the posts that are being made, and putting that all together into a consumable package like the Flair Jeans report that we showed just now. That's golden to a retailer. That's just cutting through and getting to the chase of what they need to do with that information. So I think AI and all the technology advancements is letting retailers get on doing their jobs, but activated by the right data. That would be my response to that.
Yeah, just to add on that, I think as a retailer, having that transparency and trust with Quid and who your service providers are is critical. Something we've talked about is you guys being able to get some of their data and understanding what's going on with their business, and also you tapping into packaging the data that you supply to the retailer right into their dashboard and making it easy and fast for them to access. They don't want to have to try to figure out the way you're doing it and packaging it on a Sunday night or early Monday morning. They want friction-free service from their AI providers like Quid, and they want you guys to be speaking the same language. So I think that'll help everybody respond really quickly and use data to support, we'll call it the science to support the art of merchandising and marketing.
Yeah, and for me, things are getting better all the time. So, for example, the report that we showed with the Flair Jeans earlier, within a few weeks, we at Quid are switching on our Ask Quid capability, so you, Mary Beth, can actually have a conversation with that report and the underlying data behind it.
Amazing.
Could you clarify that? What demographic is this for? Being able to just unlock that power for the trend, here's some basic information, but to be able to have a conversation with it, so you really understand and hone it to your business. Yeah, I mean, it's powerful stuff.
Well, I know that Quid's dream is in the Monday meeting when the marketers and merchants are talking about the business, Quid is there and they say, what would Quid say? Quid, what do you say? And I think that that's like the dream partnership, you know?
It would be. It would be.
What else you got, Maria?
Here's another one for you, Mary Beth. If you don't mind expanding on the organizational side of retail, especially what does it take to get the right people in the room to activate on an emerging trend?
Well, you have to have that structure set up, you know, and really the leader of the retailer is doing that and should be doing that. I'm sure for most great retailers which is the leader is in the room, him or herself, likely too, because most retailers are run by merchants and they are waiting for, you know, they're getting the reports on Sunday night and nobody comes into that meeting blind. Everybody gets the reports ahead of time. Everybody knows what's going on. So there's no secrets, you know, but the people in charge of each pyramid, whether you're a merchant, a marketer, a planner, the stores organization, the sourcing team, the design team, they're all coming in with their point of view on their part of being a stakeholder in the running of the business. And, you know, like I said, the reports come out on Sunday night. There's some quick down and dirty meetings on Monday morning that occur to make sure everyone is on the same wavelength. But I'd say, you know, the best retailers, communication and collaboration, just like grain that into your brain because they're constantly talking. No one is waiting for, oh, what's Monday's meeting going to show up? No, they read the reports hourly. They read them daily. They look at them over the weekend. And this isn't meant to destroy your weekend or anything, but you're taking a peek on your phone. What's happening? You know, what's going on? And then you all come in really prepared and excited to be part of that meeting and, you know, support your team and defend your turf, you know, for the decision making.
Awesome. Thank you, Mary Beth. And I think this might be our last question since we are almost at time. Do you both have examples of brands that you think are in touch with their core audience and do a good job of reacting to trends?
You know, I don't think we want to single out brand, quite honestly. You know, who knows who's on this call? I don't think we really want to single out the brands.
Dangerous territory.
Doing it well. But I would just say, you know, a lot of retailers are public, and I am, like I said, a student of the business, and I not only watch what happens to their stock on a daily basis, but I read publications. I read Women's Wear Daily, Business of Fashion, Puck's newsletter. Like I read publications every morning. Like I'll be walking into, you know, making my coffee and I'm reading them all, you know, already because I love to read them. But also, you know, listening to their earnings calls if they're public companies and reading their briefs on their earnings is so interesting. I mean, it tells you the whole story. So you can kind of see who's doing well. I mean, it's no secret. It's very public information, you know, unless you're a privately held company, they keep it closer to the vest. But most, you know, many retailers are publicly held companies, many of the mall-based retailers. And you can just kind of see who's doing well, who hasn't responded quickly enough, who's got an organization that's nimble and can serve up, you know, meet their customer, like we said, meet their customers where they are.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Mary Beth. I will hand it back to you, Ian.
Thank you, Maria. So let's just close out for today then. You know, I think we can all see and feel the impact of social media on the consumer shopping behavior. Long tail theory tells us that there's as much opportunity in the aggregation of niche areas as there is opportunity in the mainstream, and businesses need to capitalize on that. Also, it's in those niche areas that trends often start, but they can often break out from those communities and cross over into the mainstream, and businesses need to capitalize on that too. Working with the right partner, retailers and brands can listen to their consumers through social platforms and user-generated content sources. They can identify emerging opportunities and activate on the right trends and drive sales and profitability for their businesses. Now, if you're interested in digging a little bit deeper into this world, just a little bit of a plug. Our co-founder and president Bob Goodson is just about to launch a book that they're taking pre-orders at the moment called Like, the Button That Changed the World, and he explores a lot of the hot topics that we've discussed today. So go ahead, get your pre-order in for the Like book, and I'm sure Bob will be very appreciated. Now, we'll be sending out the recording of today's webinar to everyone who registered. So if you'd like to continue the conversation with us, we'd be thrilled to have that conversation with you. I hope you've enjoyed the conversation today. Mary Beth, thank you very much for the time today. I think the conversation's been fascinating for me. And to everyone that's managed to join us, thank you very much for listening, and have the good rest of your day. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.